I hope you are ready to dive right out of the fifth dimension and dive right into points of experience. My name is HMK, and if you're ready for this, let's dive directly into that darkness.
Disaster averted. Give me the lowdown again on what's the favorite thing with prized possession again in the background.
Oh, over there, I had 3 player Kais, Sora and the 2 Roxas, Code and Casual Roxas. So I got the 2 player Kais of Sora and Cody Roxas myself. But the Casual Roxas was actually an anniversary gift from my fiance. So that one holds more emotional weight than the other 2. And then I want to get into the story of these Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time figures that I have over there. You can't really see them because they're on the other side of the room. I want to say that for the. I mean, we're live now, so I mean, I can just tell the story.
Do it, please.
Oh, cool. So I have a Ganondorf and Link Ocarina of Time figurines, and those are from the time. Those are from around the time when Ocarina of Time first came out on the N64. And I remember when I was really, really young, I saw an ad within. It was either a magazine or something that I got from Blockbuster or anything. I saw an ad that said, "Oh, you can get these figures by sending in a money order or a check," because back in the day we didn't have PayPal or anything like that. So I got a lot of my little allowances where I saved it all up. And I gave it to my mom, and then my mom's like, she wrote the check, sent it in. I'm like, oh, mom, send it in. And she got all the information, did it, right? 2 months later, I got a letter back from the company Nintendo, or the production company for the toys, and then no toys. And I got my money back, and then my mom had to explain it to me that the letter said that they were out of production and it didn't have them anymore. As a kid, I didn't really get that, so I was really, really defeated that day. I was messed up. So I really wanted those toys because I'm like, oh, Link and Ganondorf are so cool. So I told this story to my fiance one time, and just like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, that really bummed me out, whatever. And then my birthday that year, she tracks down and gets let me get them. She tracks down the toys and gives it to me. And I'm like, where did you find these? And she refuses to tell me how much she paid for them. So these are the ones I'm talking about.
Oh my gosh. First of all, shout out to the women in your life, your mom for being on top of that for you as a kid, and your fiance for getting it.
Are like the OG Ocarina of Time figurines from 1998.
Dude. Yo.
And I really, really wanted these. I never got them as a kid, and she got them for me when I was an adult as a birthday gift. And I'm like, these, when you're talking about prized possessions, these are definitely at the top.
Dude, I think I had that Link. He's got his headphones in for those of you who are listening to the podcast right now, so I don't believe he can hear us until he has returned back to his gorgeous setup here with his chair and microphone, and I think we are about to be... There he is! There we go. I was talking to the audience who... explaining how you have your headphones in, so you couldn't hear me as I was talking. But that is amazing, and I said shout out to the amazing women in your life who, your mom for doing that for you as a kid, and then for your fiance for getting that for you now as an adult. That is so, that's someone who listens. It means a lot. And it means a lot, right?
Right, it really goes a long way.
I think I had the Link as a kid. I think I actually had that because I was just as obsessed with Zelda as a kid as you. And I mean, I'm for our listeners, I'm wearing my Zelda shirt, and I decided to wear my slouchy beanie, kind of like my Link style. But hang on, let me see here. I'll get something of my little collection. Things are breaking and things are falling. I had to decide which, because I have so many different Zelda hats. I've just got a straight up Zelda beanie. I've got this dope Zelda hat. It's like a different it's almost got like a leather blue and
like a leather design. Nice.
Leather design.
I like the studs there.
Yeah, I've just got a straight up, just Zelda emblem one there. I've got this one which has got the graphic print on the front. I'm like,
oh, I got one for you.
Okay, we're doing the showdown here.
You already know my style, red, black, all that good jazz. And then there was a limited edition print that was only at Spencer's, I think, of the Legends of Dark collection, where it has Dark Link on it, and I'm like, as soon as I saw this hat, I'm like, I'm getting it. There's no way I'm not getting this thing.
That is fresh.
This is That's probably like my favorite hat.
That is so clean. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was so, I mean, I was so obsessed with Zelda to the point where I did a, I have a short film that I made. It's, again, my nerd gamer in me. It was called Aerith, based on the English translation of Aerith for Final Fantasy VII. And in the whole movie, I'm wearing a necklace. I'm wearing a Triforce necklace. That was my little nice. Ode to Zelda as being a fan. So dude, everybody here, wherever you're punching into this episode, based if you skipped the intro or not, we're here with HMKilla, HMK, a dear friend of mine, someone who had me on his Twitch stream podcast where we talked multiple times, an amazing talent as a streamer, content creator with so many. There we go. There's his channel right here for us with over,
Oh, snap.
how many videos total do we have on your channel? Are we at the hundreds at this point?
No, like way more. I've been doing YouTube since like 2012, and then I took it seriously around like 2015. So I got like over 1,000 videos. I think. Like, it's crazy.
Thousands. I mean, you have such an amazing following and fan base. I love every single one of your streams. You're one of the most influential people when it comes to content regarding, I would say, obviously Kingdom Hearts content, but more so Square Enix stuff. I see you've been streaming Final Fantasy VII recently, and you're a huge Zelda fan, and we'll get into all that stuff. But you were somebody who I wanted to have on because I just think that you have created such an amazing community, such an amazing brand. Everything that you do, I feel like it comes from like, there's a sense of fun and wonder with what you create, and it's like positivity, and that's everything that I'm about, everything we care about here. And you even have your own community, the Fifth Dimension, which I want to talk about as well. You're just such a great person who kind of gives back to their community. I really, really love it, and I would love for people here to get to know you a little better, maybe in a more intimate way than you've done before. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe
we shall see. It sounds fun. I'm game. Yeah, let's go.
Time will tell. So I'd love to start from the beginning, as much as the beginning as we can. Where you came from, how you got into games, how you got into streaming, all of that stuff leading up to you as the nitty gritty as a child. What was the stuff that said to you, "Hey, I want to be a streamer. Hey, I love video games." What were those moments for you as a child that led to like where you are today?
Oh, perfect. That's a great place to start. And by the way, thank you so much for all the kind words. I really do appreciate it. Like it's great. It's super genuine. I love it.
My humble pleasure. My humble pleasure.
So when it comes to like when I was a kid growing up and stuff, so I was born around the time where like the NES was out of its way, and then the Super Nintendo was finally like coming in and whatnot. And then of course when I was like like at an age I was like I would say cognitive, that's when the N64 was like really up and about. So when I was very little, I used to like go over to my friends or my cousin's house, mostly family members, and I play a little bit of Duck Hunt. I play a little Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda 1 and whatnot. But that was a point in my life where I was still very young, so the memories like actually really hazy during those points in time. When I was around, I would say 8 or 9, I had this cousin named Wally, and I would go over his house all the time, and he had all the like awesome like video game systems. He had a PlayStation 1, and he had an N64. And then when I watched him play video games, I was like captured. I'm like, wow, this is cool, so cool. This is the coolest stuff ever, right? And I saw him play Ocarina of Time, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I was just mystified by like everything I was seeing on the screen and whatnot. And he was at a point in the game where it was like he showed me like Link going from a child to an adult, and I'm like, that to me that blew my mind. I didn't see anything like it, because I mean, like growing up, I as a very small child, I'm like, I know who Super Mario is, but then like Legend of Zelda was always pixelated. It was always like 16-bit, 8-bit. But then when I saw like Zelda in 3D, that really got me going on that. Like that's what I want to play. That's what I want. So then as a kid, I begged my mom and dad, I'm like, listen, please get me this video game, please, 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 please. So they end up getting me an N64 that year. And then a funny sub story about that is that my dad, I told him like, oh dad, you gotta get me Mario and you gotta get me Zelda, right? And he's like, all right, mijo, like I'll get you those games, right? So he gets me the N64, but like, since he wasn't versed in video games at that point in time, he saw Mario and got me Mario Kart 64 instead of Super Mario 64, which I was trying to get. And then I'm like, Dad, this is the wrong one. And he's like, what do you mean? It's Mario. I'm like, but this is Mario Kart 64. There's a racing game. So he's like, instead of taking it back, he just kept it. And then, like, now Mario Kart's like his favorite game ever. It's like his favorite game ever. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then we still play to this day. And then he got me Super Mario 64 on top of that. And then that was like, he got me the N64 and the Mario game and Super Mario 64 like before my birthday. My birthday came around November. And then he got me Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And when I sat down and played this game, like, myself, it was just electric, feeling everything from the beginning to end. And then, you know, I played Zelda games before that, but Ocarina of Time really cemented me as a Zelda fan. It cemented that wonder in my mind of just, like, you know, playing video games that it's like, it takes you to this other world, this other, you know, universe, this other dimension in which you can just, like, enjoy yourself outside your daily life. And then ever since then, I just, like, I became enamored with technology as a whole, you know, ever since playing the N64. So, like, I was really into computers at that point. You know, my dad was a huge Trekkie already, so he got me into, like, things like Star Trek, Star Wars. He was a huge sci-fi buff, so I already kind of had that, like, you know, upbringing within that. But then, like, high fantasy was my bag. After Ocarina of Time, I started doing reading Lord of the Rings. I started reading on Greek mythology. It was just like a big snowball effect after Ocarina of Time, which all started there. And then that's my deal with Zelda. I was hooked. So, like, you know, all right, Zelda's done. Then a couple of years later, 2001, my best friend, to this day, we always, like, growing up, we always had this rivalry. I was always Nintendo, he was PlayStation, right? So then he had a PS2, and then he got a game called Kingdom Hearts. And then he calls me up and he's like, hey, ask your mom if you could come over this weekend. You know, I got this game, Kingdom Hearts, you gotta play it. And I'm like, Kingdom Hearts, what's that? It's like, you know Final Fantasy? And I knew Final Fantasy at that point because I'm like, okay, I played Final Fantasy on the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo, and I didn't have a PS1, so I didn't play 7 up until like a little later. He's like, oh, you gotta play this game. You know, it has Cloud in it, there's Final Fantasy, and it has Disney. I'm like, wait, so Disney and Final Fantasy? He's like, yeah. I'm like, the first thing I said, Paul, was like, that sounds stupid, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, he's like, no, you gotta come play it. I came over that weekend. It was over. I just was hooked. Kingdom Hearts, like, Sora, the abilities, the whole action RPG sense of the word. It was just so crazy. So he got me into Kingdom Hearts, and he also got me into Devil May Cry because he also had that as well. So, like, Devil May Cry, Kingdom Hearts, I was hooked at the earliest part. Like, from the beginning, I was hooked on Kingdom Hearts and Devil May Cry. So then, after playing Kingdom Hearts at his house, like, that's how I had to play it. I didn't have a PS2 of my own, so I had to go to his house, play Kingdom Hearts 2, and I had my own file, so front to back, right? I was so grateful for him showing me that around his birthday time. I still didn't have a PS2 when Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, so I bought him the game for his birthday. Kingdom Hearts 2. It's like, wow, oh my God, Kingdom Hearts 2, right? And then I had, once again, I had my own file on that, so I played Kingdom Hearts 2 whenever I got into his house, and that's how I played Kingdom Hearts 2. And then my brother ended up getting a Game Boy Advance, and then retroactively I went back and played Chain of Memories, because in Kingdom Hearts 2, I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? Because I didn't play Chain of Memories at that point. So then that's how I got into Kingdom Hearts, and that's, like, I would say my upbringing with my two beloved games. I promise I'm gonna make this quick when it comes to, like, content creation and streaming and YouTube and whatnot.
I love it. Keep it going.
I used to work at Blockbuster in its final years. Like, I went down with the ship, you know, like, and I'm telling you, that job was one of my favorite jobs ever, right? And this is way later in my life where, you know, when it comes to video games and me, like, you know, learning about video games, I played video games. I read all the magazines back in the, like, fledgling times of the internet. I will keep up on the sites like Game Informer, IGN, Video Game Magazine, Nintendo Life, all that stuff. Like, I had subscriptions and everything, so I'm like, I'm reading, clicking on the internet. I was, like, in the zone. So I got a job at Blockbuster, and I was in charge of the video game section, horror section, and action section. So then, being there, it was like a really fun job. A lot of customers that would keep coming back always ask me for recommendations when it comes to video games or movies that, you know, are in line. And then thanks to these recommendations, they always come look for me. Say, hey, is that boy with the red hair working today? It's like, oh, hey, I'm over here. And they would come to me, ask me for recommendations, you know, come back they keep coming to my shop. So at that point in time, I'm like, people really like what I have to say when it comes to, video games and movies and whatnot. And at that point in time, I was also watching a YouTuber, which is, if you guys, put two and two together, was a very big inspiration for me. Angry Joe, right? And Angry Joe's content was just like, I still watch him to this day, right? So at one point while I was working on Block Press, something clicked in my head where I'm like, you know what? If he can do it, why can't I? Right? So then at that point, I started recording videos, and then the videos started taking off. And then I just started doing videos, and then here I am now with HMK as a brand, as a YouTube channel. And then, my early work. Why you gotta go back there? Oh, no, back in the day, my lord. Oh, man.
I love it, Keith. I love it.
When it comes to streaming, Twitch was always an offshoot of YouTube. So I always would focus more on YouTube, and then people started doing Twitch more and more. People were getting partnered and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, let me try my hand at that. And then I started doing Twitch, and I finally got partnered. I was kind of like I was the last one of my friends, the key keepers, when it comes to Jared, Sky, and Dean. I was the last one to get partnered out of all of them. And then once we all got partnered, I'm like, yeah, all right. Twitch is looking like a spot as well. So now I focus on YouTube and Twitch. And at this point, I focus on them kind of, equally and whatnot. And I guess that's the spiel of how I got into YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff.
Gosh, that was fantastic. And I'm going to try and the little earmarks I put while you were talking, I want to kind of touch upon them, because so much of what your story is in your childhood and your kind of upbringing with gaming, it's so similar to mine, down to the point of begging your parents to get you this game system. I had a very similar relationship with my dad, where I would, I begged him for the systems. I had the same experience with A Link to the Past for the SNES. When I got that, I was like, when I got that, my life was like, oh my gosh, this is such a cool game. But then even more so when N64 came out. Obviously, I played Mario 64. As soon as N64, I think, came out, I got it instantly. I was already indoctrined into the Nintendo franchise. Nice. But going even further, then the same thing happened with me for PlayStation. My family couldn't afford a brand new PlayStation. I got it used. It came with Final Fantasy VII.
That's so perfect. What?
It was a bundle deal, and I'm 7 years old at the time, and I'm as a kid, you're experiencing these magical stories. It seems so much larger than life when you're so young, and I wanted to ask you about this before I ask some of the other things is,
okay,
do you feel like that wonder that you had as a kid when you experienced these games, it's not only is it a new game, it's a new understanding of what life has to offer, what is available in the universe for you? Do you feel like you still have that same sensation with certain games, or do you feel like that is so reliant upon you being a kid and being such a sponge for these new things and not being kind of tainted by society and everything like that? Do you still have those moments with games?
I honestly say that I do, but it's a lot fewer and in between than it was when I was younger. And I feel like it's also because of that wonder as a kid. That's one part of it. And then the second part of it is the state of the video game industry at this point in time. A lot of genres and a lot of practices become oversaturated since the genre, since the industry has finally crossed over into the casual market. So they have to look at those numbers. They have to look at those productions and these games and those games. So it's really hard to recapture that. To best answer your question, I still have the capacity to do so because I actually got that super recently with Elden Ring. Elden Ring really just really unlocked that portion of my brain again. I'm like, bro, this is the new facet, the new standard of gaming. This is really shows me, like you said, what gaming is capable of, this new avenue and stuff. I mean, because open world games have been done before. They've been done to hell and back, especially since Breath of the Wild came out, which was another point in my time where I'm like, wow. Yeah. Ever since that game came out, the open air or the open world genre got oversaturated again. Every game needs to be open world again. And when Elden Ring came out, it really showed me like my friends really put it into really cool perspectives. Where one of my friends said, "This is the game," and I'm not honestly, I'm not taking anything away from this other game. Elden Ring for me, and I agree 100%. Elden Ring for me is what I expected and what I wanted when I tried Skyrim. Right? This is the Skyrim experience that I wanted. Right? And I'm not taking anything away from Skyrim, but that's just me. Right? That's one. And then two, Elden Ring really instilled a question within me that my one of my best friends, Henry, said. It's like, have you ever played a game so good, but asked the question for yourself, like, yo, is this too much game? Like, is this too much game? And when I'm playing Elden Ring, I'm like, this is massive. Like, this is I don't think I've ever played a game at this point in time that made me experience that much bang for my buck for $60, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's actually insane. Like, oh man, but so I do get that again, but like not as often as I did back then. And like I feel it's because what game developers try to do with their games, and when a game developer honestly like, are you having fun making this game? Because I want to have fun with a game that you had fun making, and I don't know if a lot of game developers are doing that at this point in time, because like I got that sense of wonder a lot within that of like the entirety of the N64 library, and then going into the GameCube era, and then a bit in the Wii era, and then like in the Switch. I still got that every now and again, and I'm talking Nintendo consoles, but of course I have more consoles now. But you know, I do get that, but just not as often. But it's possible. It's definitely possible. Like Elden Ring is like testament to that. You know, Breath of the Wild, testament to that. You know, Kingdom Hearts 3 and Remind is testament to that. You know, so like it can happen. It could still happen.
When it comes to Elden Ring in particular, there's one thing I kind of want to point out. Elden Ring is an example of show don't tell on such a extreme scale that when you first play Elden Ring, you unlock first piece of the map. You're like, oh, this is all there is. It's like the size of Breath of the Wild. Then you find the next area. You get the next map. Oh, this is all this is. Then you find the next area. And it keeps repeating that process until the world is so large, you go, what haven't I explored yet? What else is there to find? And that sense of wonder in exploring Elden Ring is, I think, what ties it back to everybody when we were younger, with games being like, how big is this? And you just keep going and going and going and going. And eventually you find the end of it and you're like, there's got to be more. And then there is.
Yeah. It's really magical, I think. Great way of putting it, Keith. And I have to agree as well, HMK. It's like, when I played Elden Ring, I had that same sense of, and I had the same thing like you said with Breath of the Wild. Totally different experiences as games, but it sparked that feeling for me, like, oh wow, people are taking this to the next level, and it's kind of
right.
It's ridiculous to think of what that next frontier is going to be, because this open world thing that we're seeing, even like to a degree, like I think most people expected a lot more with Cyberpunk, but it still had those flavors of what things are capable of, especially with like the graphics and the engine. And maybe we're going to see some of this stuff with like Kingdom Hearts 4. Who knows what frontiers are yet to be surpassed with these new games coming out and the new capabilities we have, primarily from a graphics perspective. But I do hope and believe, and as we've seen with Elden Ring, I hope we see this in just mechanics and story and character. I hope we start seeing things like that be like revolutionized to that next level, because even in these early games, let's talk about the silent protagonist for a second. A very, like something like Link in Zelda. We fell in love with this idea of this character who never even said a word. You know?
Right.
What can be done next to the same degree of revolutionizing your experience with character? I don't know. I feel like the opportunities are endless and also kind of unfathomable at the same time.
Man, like I was just thinking about like the whole idea of like of characters and how they imprint on you, even though they don't really have like a slate to imprint onto you. And like Link is definitely like, you know, at the top when it comes to that idea. But I was always thinking about, like, I know there's a few games that did this, but I feel that more games should do this and put their own spin and flair on like characters that start as blank slates, right? But imagine like a game where like you have like Link, right? A blank slate character, completely from the beginning, blank slate. But then obviously you make these choices as you go on to the game. Games have done this before where you make choices and then like it leans you towards a what do you call it? I don't want to say a faction, but an alignment, right?
Yeah.
In case in point, Mass Effect, Renegade, Paragon,
Sure.
all that jazz, right? But then Shepard himself is like, like he has a personality, and then he can go either way when you make those choices. Like imagine a game that's of someone that starts out as a blank slate, but depending on the choices you make, you can go like in these like almost infinitely possible routes that mold this character, kind of like Fable a little bit, but like when you keep going down these routes, when it comes to like characters and the choices that you make for them molds them, and then you start speaking and you start saying things in a certain way or a certain degree that can affect quests, that can affect where you discover a new world, or how people like treat you and stuff. And like I said before, things like that gets explored like sometimes in video games, but I feel like that is a really big uncharted land or frontier, as you would say, in terms of like having these characters that you can imprint back onto them as they do to you. And I'm just saying like game developers, I feel that's a big avenue to explore still, but
I couldn't agree more. No, and that is kind of that frontier that maybe you just kind of sparked that for me. It's like maybe that's where we start seeing from a character perspective where, like you say, because we want to see ourselves in these characters to a degree, and I think that's why the silent protagonist works sometimes, is because you're very easily able to kind of put yourself in those shoes of that person, because you're not being forced upon a personality, or like, I like this person versus this person. It's really easy for you to put yourself in there because they're not making any choices that are radically different from you as a human being. It's easy for you to assimilate your personality traits onto this character. But if then you start making choices within these dialogue selections or these opportunities to go left or right or straight, you're doing that as like a character creator. Yeah. And that creates an experience that I think is even more impactful and probably creates insane amount of replayability, because there's a billion different ways you can go about the game too. That's like a really exciting way to start thinking about particularly RPGs, I think, as a gaming experience. But because we're seeing it now with character creation. Seeing a lot of games create that very customizable experience. But what you're saying is like the next ante added to that whole thing. Maybe there's and I'm kind of torn upon that, and maybe you can talk about how you feel. Like I love like the character creation aspect, but like in RPGs, I kind of still like you giving me that stock profile a little bit. I like that character being, I like squalls, I like clouds, I like
I definitely feel that it's like, no, I want to play the character on the box. Like that's my character. Like for the longest, like when I was going back to Elden Ring, for the longest I was looking for the armor from the box. I'm like, where is this? I want to be that. That's the armor I want. Where is it? And then I actually found out very like 60 hours later. I'm like, oh, finally, right? So I definitely get what you mean.
So, and that kind of brings me to my next question here, because you were saying in your story when you were working at Blockbuster, you were like that guy with the red hair, which leads me to believe that you had red hair even from when you were a kid, and this is not something that you manufactured as part of your brand. Can you talk to me a little bit about your creation of your channel and how whether it's the things about yourself that influenced it or things that have developed? Because what you have in your streams and, what is the fifth dimension is so fascinating to me and amazing. What about you evolved over time, and what about yourself did you just bring to the stream that people might not know about?
So like dating back, even with the red hair and everything, like everyone's, it's funny. A lot of people keep on saying that like, oh yeah, the red hair, you got that from Markiplier, right? And I'm like, no, I was doing this before Markiplier, and I actually have photographic evidence. Like I remember meeting Markiplier back in the day before he dyed his hair red. I'm like, see, I got red hair, his red hair is still black. So like, nah, that's a me thing, right? So I've been dyeing my hair like almost as long as I can remember. But the thing is, I always did a lot of different colors, but like now these days I just mainly stick to red. It's a bit of a branding choice, because like me, black and red, but like maybe I feel like dye my hair blue again or dye my hair green again, whatever. But when it comes to like myself as a person and how I inflict that onto like my brand of like HMK and the fifth dimension, is that growing up I was always energetic. A lot of people you'd think this like, oh, this hype persona is just like, oh no, he's just faking it and stuff like that. And like, bro, if you actually met me, you would know that like I can talk your ear off if you really get me like going. And I'm very excitable. Like I'm eccentric, I'm energetic, I'm like almost annoyingly so. And my close friends can tell you, anyone in my circle is like, yeah, no, he talks a lot, right? And
I'm with you.
His volume control is a little out of the window and stuff. So like I was always like an energetic individual and whatnot. And growing up, especially going into middle school and high school, you know, I was bullied a lot. And I was, you know, that helped. That definitely not help. What am I saying? Help. That you know, make me suppress that like energetic side of me whenever I'm in school. But as soon as I get home, as soon as I'm with my friends, I'm like, yeah. But when I'm in like on campus or whatever, I'm like, all right, you know, just go to class, do my homework, go home, right? And that was always the thing. But like, luckily throughout high school, I was able to meet friends that shared my passion and stuff like that. Because, you know, like I grew up during the time in high school where it's all like, oh, comic books, oh, video games, like nerd, and like all that stuff. And then I was like, man, I don't care. So that was like a big thing that really inflicted itself onto like the whole idea of like HMK and the fifth dimension is like, you know, don't be afraid to be energetic. Don't be afraid to be loud. Don't be afraid to be passionate. You know, don't be afraid to have these type of qualities, because like a lot of people like get sandbagged when they get excited about something, even to this day on social media. And I'm like, bro, why are you trying to rain on other people's parades when they're being excited about something? Like, let them live. It's like, oh, like Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth just got announced, and then people are like, oh, Final Fantasy fell off. I'm like, I can't believe like Final Fantasy. Go back to turn-based RPG. I'm like, yo, let them be excited. You want turn-based? Go play Dragon Quest. You know. So I was always like instilling that type of passion into my content, into my brand, into my channel, into my Twitch, all that stuff. And then when it comes to like the whole like birth of the fifth dimension, you know, the fifth dimension is always like encapsulated and personified by, or emblazoned by, the whole wonder and passion of the unknown and the acceptance of the unknown when it comes to like, you know, video games yourself, playing games, you know, enjoying that positivity and that hype and whatnot. And that's like what I want to instill myself into my community, and as well as the Twitch stream that I run, which is, you know, known as the fifth dimension, which I've, you know, want to help give back, because I've been doing this a long time. A lot of people's like, oh man, you look so young. I'm not as young as you look. Not as young as you would think, right? And I've been doing this like whole content creation thing for like about 10 years, and you know, I really had a big conversation with myself where I'm like, okay, so what's the next, you know, part of my journey as I go into my, you know, older years, when I get older? It's like, what do I want to do, continue on? Of course I want to do content creation until, you know, I can't, right? But now I feel like this phase in my life when it comes to the fifth dimension is like, you know, help instilling what I know, what I've learned over these years into the next generation, to the next amount of people that want to, you know, follow this hype, follow this passion in terms of Twitch and YouTube and whatnot. And then that's when I build my team around. And then whenever they have questions, I'm like, oh, this is what I've learned. This is what people won't tell you. And, you know, this is what I can do to help, you know, give back and like help, you know, build up the next generation of people, of content creators that want to follow this line of work, this line of identity and whatnot, especially since, you know, I didn't have that create like in my fledgling years of content creation. I didn't have that, you know, backup and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't want people to go through the same thing I did. So that's like the whole idea of myself, like, you know, instilled into this content, instilled into this brand, instilled to this channel and whatnot. But at the same time, you know, HMK is not, you know, it's a brand, but it's not a brand because I am HMK. That's me, you know, like, you know, like people honestly, like there are some people online that say, you know, make sure you separate your identity and your personality from your like social media presence. I'm like, but why though? You know, that sounds like the easiest way to get sandbagged for being someone you're not or trying to hide something. Like literally what you see is what you get when the camera is on and off. And, you know, like I said, if you met me at conventions, you would know like automatically. Like the only rule I had, like if you guys ever meet me in real life, please say hi. You know, the only time, like I only have one rule when it comes to like, you know, if you see me out in the open, if I'm eating, wait till I'm done. All right, because I'm eating. That's it. But yeah, so that's what I gotta say about that.
I love it. I love it. And that's the community that you've created is of a bunch of streamers. They're all great people that I feel like, whether you have or not, are all kind of vetted to be under that same principle. They all feel like people that I've watched, well, you know, that you wind up rating or hosting, whatever it is. They all seem like really, really great people. And I'm sure they all have tons of questions for you. What is the number one thing you keep hearing from these people who are pursuing streaming or content creation as a job? What's the number one thing people keep asking that they're, or the number one thing that people are doing wrong that you see time after time again? It's like, you keep trying to do this, or this is what you're doing, and that's not what you should be doing. What's like the number one thing? It's almost like the number one piece of advice, but what is the reoccurring kind of question that's kind of like, it's as simple as this?
That's tough, because there are a couple of facets. So I guess I'll just answer. I think there's three. So I'm gonna answer in three
Even
different
better.
ways, like, you know, to get that broad scope. A lot of people really get it twisted that, like, okay, if I'm willing to spend this amount of money into my tech, that will see any type of return, like, almost instantaneously or guaranteed at one point in time, and that's not the case. You know, you can spend this much money into a good camera, into a good mic, into a PlayStation or a good computer to stream, right? But that's literally, you know, I would say like 5% of what you would need to like get far in terms of content creation, either on YouTube or Twitch, right? And a lot of people get it twisted. It's like, oh, if I got a good camera, people are gonna watch me, and then they end up streaming a game, and then they have this good mic and this good camera, and then they're like this for like an hour or 2 hours, right? And then that leads into the next part, and that, you know, you have to be consistent in what you present and what you do, and a lot of people aren't. And you know, I get it that sometimes, you know, the scheduling conflicts, like people are either like they have another job or they're in school or anything like that. I get that. But in the starting phase of content creation, if you're too erratic in the beginning, then that's an easy way to get messed up in 2 degrees. One, getting messed up by the algorithm, because the algorithm does not like that either on Twitch or on YouTube. If you're too erratic, then the algorithm literally is like, slip through the cracks, right? Yeah. That's one. And then 2, if you do build any type of community, then being too erratic in your fledgling years is an easy way to turn them off. And a lot of people really need to understand that if you are presenting yourself in content creation, in streaming or on YouTube, always assume 100% of the time, don't make any other assumptions otherwise, assume 100% of the time that every viewer that you're presenting yourself to, and this is obviously not like a slight against anyone in particular, it's just like, you know, basics of understanding how the game is played. Always assume everyone that you're presenting yourself to has the attention span of a fly, right? That if at one point that you give them, and if at one point you give them any reason to click off your stream or to click off your video, they will. Always assume that they will click off. And if you construct your streams and your content in that way, then that's an easy way to get continued and continued and consistent engagement, because it's all about engagement, you know. And I guess that's like the third thing when it comes to, like, you know, this like long-winded answer to your question. It's like engagement. Engage with your community. Engage with your chat. Even when there is no chat, engage. Like, that's like, you have to learn, especially with streaming, you have to learn how to talk to yourself. You have to learn to have conversation with yourself, especially in the fledgling years. If there's no one in the chat, you know, don't stay silent, because if you stay silent and someone shows up and then they see that you're not talking, they're gonna leave just as quickly, right? You have to have conversation with yourself. Like, people make memes about this, like what was that show? I love that show where it's like where I'm brain farting so hard. You know, the meme was like, it's fiction. Yeah. It's fiction. No, like, it's fiction. It's like, oh, this one was invented by a writer. It's fiction. No way, not a chance. It was like a compilation. And like, believe it or not, it's not Ripley's Believe It or Not. It's gonna, like, someone in the chat or someone in the comments is gonna say it. Anyways, they make memes like, oh, how to have a conversation with yourself when your chat's not active. And it's like, oh, did you ever order Chinese? Oh, have you ever ridden down a park? And then it's like a big compilation of someone, of the same dude asking questions. Anyways, that's like the biggest point that people need to like understand when streaming or even doing YouTube. Be sure to have conversation with yourself. Be sure to talk. Like, you obviously don't talk fast. I'm a fast talker, but I've been talking fast ever since, I was a kid.
Me too.
Always, right? Always engage. Always engage, and be consistent with that engagement. And, and when I say consistent, it doesn't mean stream every day. But like, if you can only stream twice, if you only stream 2 days a week, always stream those 2 days a week. Try to stream those 2 days a week, always, right? And like, be transparent with your chat, be transparent with your viewers, be transparent with your commentators when it comes to like YouTube or Twitch. And that's like the big thing that a lot of people are missing, because they're always assuming turn on camera, start and play a video game, that's it. And there's a lot more intricacies when it comes to like content creation that I can't even cover, because it's a job. And it's a big job, and it needs a big understanding when it comes to the algorithm, when it comes to like when to upload, when to stream, what to stream, like all that good jazz. There's a lot to go into it. And when people say, oh, YouTube and Twitch, get a real job, I always look at them, I'm like, listen, I probably pay more taxes than you. So don't tell me that I don't have a real job. All right. So that's what I
heard him, folks. You heard him. This is a real job. Like, the amount of people who have ridiculously obscene, unheard of, like, some people's jobs. I'm gonna tell you right now. I was talking about this earlier with a friend of mine or something. Some people's jobs are literally buying property and making other people pay to live in those properties. That's a real job? If that's a real job, how is somebody who's creating a program of entertainment, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, for people's enjoyment, how is that not a real job? People watch QVC. How is this not it? You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody has their form of entertainment, and people can shit on video games and YouTubers all they want, but this is the future, and this is where the attention is going. More people in the world than you can imagine are actually fans of video games. I'm sorry, this is the way that the world is moving towards, and thankfully so. Right. I'm very happy to live in this time right now, and to see people able to make careers out of being content creators, streamers. I was talking with this in my last episode because my co-host, who couldn't be here, Joe, he was a Fortnite content creator streamer. We were talking about, think about this. In 5-10 years, it's going to be a common thing for people to say, yeah, I just got a scholarship to go to UCLA to be a pro Overwatch player or whatever. Yep. That's going to be commonplace. And I'm so excited for that, for gaming to be considered a competitive sport the way it should be. I want to go to bars and see the frickin', gaming on the screens when I'm going to get a drink.
It's happening now. I remember the story, or a friend of mine was like, he went to a bar and they were playing Evo with Street Fighter 5, like the grand finals, right? And a lot of people were like, boo, put on the match. At first when it came on, boo, put on the match. 20 minutes later, everyone in the bar is like,
yeah,
yo, and then like it has that effect. Like it's happening, and it will happen. Like, trust me, we're getting there. Like the process has been started. The wheel is turning.
Slow and steady.
It's one of those things that just as a quick background for myself, I actually never introduced myself on the podcast until this point. I actually have.
Gosh.
Yeah, sorry. I'm actually the editor of the podcast.
Filling in for
the first
Joe
time
today.
You're seeing my face. I have been a TO for fighting games for almost a decade now. And one of the biggest things I've always told people is when you TO, you realize how invested people get because you have to watch them. Like, there are bars around me that will actually turn on Evo and will leave them running for days. One of my favorite examples was the Overwatch League when it first came out, and it was super popular. There was a bar that was really close to home that I used to go to fairly often. Oh, it was always playing every single day. It was on. I was like, this is going to be a huge transition period for anyone in video game entertainment, because people are suddenly realizing that if you're streaming, you could be on a bar somewhere across the planet. Like, there are Korean players of like StarCraft who are still being actively streamed in Korean bars. That's one of my favorite examples. Or if you go to Japan, you'll see Japanese-based streamers.
Yeah, I've seen that
everywhere.
Here in America, I think we're a little bit behind the ball when it comes to the way that video game and anime influences our society, and hopefully, I mean, we're seeing it so much now. I think, I don't know if it's just me seeing this or if this is truly a reflection of reality, but with how mainstream anime is becoming, everybody knows about Attack on Titan. I don't care if you're, a 50-year-old comedian. Most of these people are like, there's people I listen to podcasts about, and I hear Attack on Titan be thrown around. Like, that's huge from like a way that this is being accepted by society and community, and it creates people who have, like you, who create content around, obviously around a lot of games in general, but specific games that were, at a point in time considered like, wait, you play a video game with these guys with spiky hair and Disney characters? Like, that would have been ridiculous to think about as a career, when Kingdom Hearts first came out. And now it's like this freaking colossal franchise that I believe been one of the best gifts I can imagine for you in your life to be a part of.
I don't know how I'd be without Kingdom Hearts, man. Like, I love Kingdom Hearts so much. Yeah, definitely.
With that being said, too, now obviously you've been talking a lot about Kingdom Hearts and the content that you create. Is there, before we kind of get more into that stuff, is there a process now for you today in the way that you create content? Like, how are you cultivating your ideas and saying, this is a video I want to make about, this is a game I want to stream? What is dictating your workflow at this point in time?
So at this point in time, obviously, like, the big hype and the big surrounding, idea of like Kingdom Hearts 20th anniversary, and then of course the reveal of Kingdom Hearts 4. But there is always, like, Kingdom Hearts is always, like, I would say a treasure trove when it comes to, like, understanding or applying content, because there's still so much left to be explained when it comes to the overarching lore, the overarching story and whatnot. And there's so many characters, of how they could, where they could end up, how they could be applied and whatnot. So there's always something to think about, especially when we're dealing with the whole concept of Quadratum and unreality at this point. Yozora, Strelitzia, the Nameless Star, Maga, Aegis, and of course, like, Luxord being from that realm. So there's a lot of stuff to play around with. There's a lot of wiggle room. But I mean, like, my content has always been centered about it's always been centered about, like, always centered around one concept, and then that's the concept that also brought forth the identity of the fifth dimension, is that the excitement and passion of the unknown, in which like, my content is always geared towards getting you excited about what we don't know and what it could be. It's like basically theories, speculation, or even any type of line of thinking that gets you excited for the future, get you excited for the possibilities, get you excited for what has come before us and what may come after us. All right. So when it comes to, like, my thought process or my, like, work process or workflow and stuff, I always think about, like, what my community would really enjoy and what they have obviously enjoyed in the past, because I mean, like, give the people what they want. But I also, at the same time, I try to, wiggle in a little bit, like, oh, I think you would like this idea, because, if you do the same type of content over and over and over again, you might hit that wall. You might get a little burnt out, and things might get a little stale. So I always try to find a way to switch it up. I always try to find a way to, like, add some extra flair, this new unique ideas, whatnot, when it comes to, like, theory crafting or speculation, or even, like, perspective shifting when it comes to, like, what we've seen before. And then that's, I feel, is the big thing, like, the big next step that I'm doing with my content right now, because I have, like, a bunch of, like, I actually wrote 2 scripts earlier this morning. So of course I'm going to keep doing theories, because, theories is what got me here at this point. But now I want to do a bit more content in terms of perspective shifting, of how people can look at certain characters, certain events, certain, like, things that we've seen or known within that of either The Legend of Zelda, Kingdom Hearts, or Super Smash Bros. That we thought was, explained 100%, but in reality it wasn't, right? There's always that, like, one dark area, that one dark spot, or like that amount of blank years that I really want to, like, challenge what people think about, this certain event, this certain character. Like, I have this upcoming video that I've been, like, working on for a while now, and that's the whole idea of how people look at Xehanort. because I've seen a lot of people say that, oh, Xehanort bad, evil Gur, villain, that's it. I'm like, there's more to that character in terms of all of his facets, as young Xehanort, as Ansem, as Xemnas, as old man Xehanort. And like, this video is going to really challenge the perspective on how people like viewed him, or how's the consensus want to label Xehanort as a character. And then beyond that of characters, events, Breath of the Wild, there's still so much we don't know. Like we to this day we don't know what happened to the Triforce at all, and the Triforce is such a big deal within the Legend of Zelda, and Breath of the Wild, it was not brought up once.
I know.
So yeah, exactly. What? Right.
Oh my gosh.
I really want to explore that avenue, those blank years within that of the previous Zelda lore, because as you know, if you play Legend of Zelda, each game is like connected but still separate in terms of each in particular timeline, and we almost always deal with a new Link, a new Zelda, a new form of evil, because these games are sometimes 100 years apart, right?
Yeah.
But then what happened within those 100 years? We know about events like the Interloper War. We know the events of the Hyrulean Civil War. We know the events of the Imprisoning War, right? But we only know so much of those events, and those are the deep dives that I want to like try and like expose and explain, and at the same time make people think of what could have happened. We still don't know what happened to Sora within that blank year after reminding going into Kingdom Hearts 4. And Strelitzia said in the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer that Sora's been there asleep for 7 days. What happened within those 7 days? Is that, while Sora was asleep, is that how he connected his heart to Kairi's at the end of Melody of Memory? These are like, questions and avenues I want to explore, especially, Subject X and, the Keyblade War. Is Ephemer truly dead? Did he really was put to rest, even though we saw him at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3? What's Brain up to? Because we know that he's back somehow in Missing Link after it was heavily insinuated at the end of Union Cross that Lucia took over his body, right? There is all these like things that, of course, are grounds for theorization, but are grounds for shifting our perspective on how we thought we knew of certain like aspects of lore within Kingdom Hearts, Zelda, and even Super Smash Bros. And that's my process when it comes to YouTube.
Yeah.
Now we gotta get a Twitch.
Part one. Here's part two, folks.
Here's part two, but part two is not gonna be as long as part one. Part two is just like, games when it comes to Twitch, games that I enjoy playing, games that I know a lot about of. That's one facet. Like, I know a lot about Legend of Zelda. I can talk people's heads off about Legend of Zelda while I play Legend of Zelda. And of course, playing those familiar games over and over and over again, I never get tired of them. But of course, at the same time, I like to play them in new ways. That's why I've been really, really enamored recently with randomizers. I'm going through a Kingdom Hearts 3 randomizer. I love playing Ocarina of Time randomizer, Wind Waker randomizer. And every time I play, it's always a new experience. But at the same time, it gives me that unique perspective of how much I know and learn of the intricacies of the game design of Ocarina of Time, where like, oh, if I get this item early, I can go past this, because there isn't really a wall as I would thought playing the game back in the day. If I were to get let's say I can open up the bridge as soon as I meet Rairu at the end of Ocarina of Time. The Rainbow Bridge will like manifest. I don't have to get all 6 medallions and whatnot. I can cheese my way through this. I can cheese my way through that. As long as I have this, I can just do this whole dungeon one shot. And that really gives you like a really unique understanding of the game design when it comes to like, Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, and even Majora's Mask. It's like, oh, wow. So it looks like that was only blocked by that and not blocked by this as a whole, especially with Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3, which I've done randomizers with that. I don't know if I'll ever do a Kingdom Hearts 1 randomizer. That sounds like hell, but I'll have to.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
Gosh.
I'll have to wait and see. So that's one side of the coin.
Hey, voice actors, just wanted to take a quick second from this episode to let you know about an amazing opportunity we have for Points of Experience listeners. We've teamed up with voice123.com to get you all 15% off their premium membership starting with the $3.95 tier. Now, they also offer a free membership where you can check it out and see what they're about. But with the paid memberships, you're going to get access to more auditions, you're going to get your auditions faster, you're going to get better support, you can upload more samples, all of that is going to be available with the paid memberships. I've used it before in my career, and I've curated my own client list that I've still worked with today. I started making money. It's also a great opportunity for you to take a portfolio of this paid work and present it to agents or managers and say, hey, look, I'm professional, I'm bookable, I've made money doing this, and here are the jobs that I did it on in TV, radio, commercial, video games, animation. They have it all at Voice123. So go to voice123.com/plans/POX, and you're going to get 15% off their paid memberships if you are a first-time premium package buyer or looking to upgrade into a higher tier that you've never purchased before. I promise you, it's a great place to start working. So check it out and start booking today.
The second side of the coin is that recently I've been playing a lot of Persona games, and I definitely see where all the hype is coming up because I've never played Persona before I started playing Persona games on stream, in which I'm only playing them on stream. Only on stream. I don't play them off stream. So, like, learning about these characters, learning about, like, you know, this lore, being shocked by the story of these games are now, like, a bit dated. It's a really cool, unique perspective. So I'm also getting into games that are indeed popular or have been popular that I've never experienced before, and experiencing them for the first time that I know will draw in a crowd by those that have either really requested me specifically to stream them, or, you know, people are like, oh man, I wish more people played these games. I'm like, all right, let me give it a shot. Let me see what all the hype is about. And
real quick, because
go for it.
You actually have been reading my mind this entire podcast. Like, anytime I'm like, oh, I'm gonna ask this question, you go right into it. Like, you're either that intuitively smart, or we are kinetically connected through some sort of weird dimensional crossing. So before you answer this yourself, what is a game that you think doesn't get enough love or hype that you've really enjoyed, like a sleeper game that you've played or experienced that's not like one of these mega franchise titles that have just kind of like wowed you? Like Elden Ring, obviously everyone kind of globally is like, oh my gosh. Persona games, there's a tremendous crowd around that. Is there a game that you've played that was kind of like, so for me, I'll give you a for instance, I don't know how big it was, I played it a little bit today, is a game Tunic. It's very Zelda-like, you know, obviously there's people who know about this game, but I played that game. It plays a little bit like Elden Ring. It's got so much Zelda inspiration, but that game to me I was like, whoa, what a different take, old school take on a game that I really enjoyed, and gives people like that old school Zelda feel. And then maybe they'll be inspired to be like, oh, I want to try, all right, maybe like the DS versions where it's kind of three-dimensional versus like, you know, a SNES version of Zelda. Is there a game like that that has stood out to you, even if you haven't played it, that you saw or maybe read about?
There are a couple of games, and it's funny. These, like, all right, I got 2 games that I felt like were really, 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 really good, but I, like, every time I bring them up, either some people have heard of them, or no one's heard of him. I'm like, you've never heard of this game? And funny enough, both of these games are on the Dreamcast, right? And I feel like a lot of good games want to die on that system, which is really unfortunate.
Unfortunately.
The one game, there's one game that I'm like, wow, you've never heard of this game? And that's a game called Techromancer, right? And it's a fighting game.
I have to interject because I have played that game since I've had my Dreamcast as a child. I still have my copy on my game case.
Go get it.
There you go.
I will. I can go grab it. It's right over there. No. Like, it is one of the best mecha fighting games I have ever played.
Oh my god.
There we go. I love it.
And there's a lot of people that don't know what Techromancer is, and they're like, "What's
I have no idea."
I'm like, yeah, it's like, yo, it's this awesome, like, 8-way run mecha fighting game, and it's so good, it's so easy, it's so fun. But the thing is, like, it's one of those games in terms of the 8-way run, because I mean, like, popular 8-way run games that came around at times, like Virtual Fighter, Tekken, and whatnot. But this game, unlike those games, was like it was very deep, but at the same time it was very pick up and play, which was like a lot of games during that time, like the late 90s, early 2000s. A lot of games didn't really do that because games hadn't entered the casual market at that point in time. And I'm like, yo, this game's insane. This game's so good. Like, and then people were like, oh, what's Techromancer? I'm like, you guys don't know what Techromancer is? And, you know, it didn't get a sequel or anything like that because, you know,
Dreamcast
Games like
life,
that.
right? It reminds
Yeah.
me. That reminds me of this game. I don't know if you've ever played it. It's called Vanguard Bandits, where it was a tactical JRPG. There we go. Okay, Technomancer first. Let's just look at here real quick. What do we got? Gameplay. Oh, okay, yeah, very much Gundam style mechs. Characters look dope. Wow. Kind of got like a little Mega Man style to it too. It feels like old school
and the
Man.
mechas are so varied. Like there's this one that's like a child pilots it, right? And it's like there you go, that one, yeah. And like one of its specials is that it blows up, but then it reforms like afterwards, right? But then the blow mechanic is on a timer. So you start the timer, and then you can combo like 5-second countdown, and you can combo while the timer's going off, and then timer happens, and then you explode on top of that, and then that's a hard knockdown, and then you're able to get back up and reposition yourself. This game is so good.
Everyone's gonna check this out now. Pull up Vanguard Bandits for me real quick too, Keith. This game and this the thing that reminded me about this, which was going back to our kind of original conversation, where like what can games do to be really unique. This game came with these things that you could put on your memory cards, like little stickers that you would put on your PlayStation stickers. I wonder if there's pictures of it, but I have like some of my I don't know if I have them here because I don't live in my childhood home anymore. Like on your old school PlayStation memory cards, there was like a little picture area where you could like write your name, or you could like put a sticker on there, and it had character stickers that you could put into this game. And it was this had a mixture of like all the JRPG story that you could want, mixed with like tactical Fire Emblem type stuff and mechs, all at the same time. A sleeper game that not many people know about that I still like. I'm like, I gotta go back and play that again. It was so good.
Jeez.
What was your second one? I know you had two. What was your second one?
My second one is that it's a game that like some people know, but I feel did not get the love and attention it deserved. And I'm like, this is one of those games where it's like, oh yeah, people know about it, but it's niche and it never got a sequel. I'm like, this game could have been a franchise. This is one of those games. And I know people are gonna know what I'm talking about, but they're like, I know that game. I know that game. It's like, yeah, where were you? Like, where was everybody? When the game came out? Skies of Arcadia.
Oh, heck yes.
Skies of Arcadia. Yeah, I got the GameCube re-release. That game is it's easily one of the best RPGs I've ever played. That game is amazing, and it's one of those games you played, and I'm like, yo, this could have been a franchise.
I know,
man, but it's not. And then Vice showed up in that other game that Sega did. It was like a Valkyrie Chronicles or something like that. He was like a gunner, and he was like,
yeah.
Yeah, he cameoed in that. I'm like, that when I saw that first, I'm like, okay, that hurts. That hurts. We could have. Yeah, there you go. There, like that hurts. We could have got another game, but like, oh yeah, they're here. Yeah, I'm like, so that's my other game. That game.
Okay. Well, now, but we have to. I want to talk a little bit here about Kingdom Hearts and kind of everything we have, kind of anticipating this release of Kingdom Hearts 4. There's so much stuff that you've covered. I mean, so many of your videos are covering theories about the game, things to be known or seen or discovered. What is the number one thing that you're hoping to see from Kingdom Hearts 4, or in general, just Kingdom Hearts? And maybe that we won't see it here, but like, what is the thing you hope this leads to, or the thing we get to see? What would blow your mind coming out of the next iteration of Kingdom Hearts that we get to see? I mean, because there's also kind of Dark Road and all that other stuff going on. So, like, what's the number one thing for you?
Okay, the number one thing for me, and I gotta word this very carefully because I know there's gonna be like people like they will get mad about this, only because that this avenue, it's related to Kingdom Hearts, definitely, because it is Kingdom Hearts we're talking about, but then it also relates to something like this, something else that's in this. It is no secret that Tetsuya Nomura is obviously using ideas from Final Fantasy Verse 13 in Kingdom Hearts 4, the whole concept of Yuzora, Quadratum. Quadratum is based on, so far we've seen Shibuya, Shinjuku, and Minato. And Insomnia was originally based on Shinjuku. And like, it's extremely blatant, even after you play Kingdom Hearts through your mind and seeing the trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4. The one thing that I really want to get a grasp on is like, the whole I want to flesh out the whole concept of Quadratum, because it's this whole idea of this other reality that is unreality aside of that from Kingdom Hearts. Because Kingdom Hearts is it's no stranger to the idea of like multiple worlds, multiple dimensions, whatnot. But now we're dealing with something beyond that, like beyond the curtain, as it would say, you know, when you beat Yozora and get that trophy in Kingdom Hearts Remind. I want to know what is the truth beyond the curtain. What is this realm that is unreality? This realm that is unfathomable to the inhabitants of what is deemed to be reality. That comparative contrastive feel in which, you know, reality within Kingdom Hearts is this fantastical world represented by Disney characters, Disney films, Final Fantasy. It's all like, you know, deemed by fiction. Yet this other reality that is deemed as fiction within that is based on nonfiction, is based on reality itself, is based on the real world aspects of modern day Tokyo. You know, I want to know like what's the truth of Quadratum and how much we know of Final Fantasy Verse 13 is going to be adapted into this, and why is it being adapted to this? Why is Quadratum taking the form of what we've seen in Verse 13? Who exactly is Yozora, and why is he taking this obvious, you know, this obvious presence that is, you know, being inspired by that of Noctis, Lucius, Kylam? You know, like, why did Nomura decide to go down this avenue? You know, the obvious, I would say, conjecture would be that is like, oh, I want to recapture a project that was, you know, never materialized that I want to do. You know, obviously that's the you know, probably the personal want for that, but I want to know what the lore aspect, the lore explanation of this, you know, like it's so funny. Like, I constantly compare the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, the end of the Dark Seeker saga, to the end of the Infinity arc within that of the MCU, the end of Phase 3. People also constantly have these questions like, where can Phase 3 go after Thanos? Where can Phase 3 go after that? And now we're learning that the hard way, you know, multiverse, you know, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, you know, it's going in, Loki, WandaVision, right? So a lot of people ask, you know, where can Kingdom Hearts go after Kingdom Hearts 3, after Xehanort's done, all right? And now we are learning, like, blatantly in a huge way, like, this is where Kingdom Hearts is going, and personally, I'm loving it. So, like, to answer that question, like, that's what I want. That's the main number one thing that I'm, you know, teething and gushing for. Like, I want to get a grasp on this perspective. Of course, there's other things that people want to know about, like, so, like, the core to Sora's disappearance. Like, why did the power of waking do this? Why is this the punishment? You know, how much of the world of this world is known to the world of the real world? What is in the black box? You know, how much does Lucio, the Masters, and the Forto know about this other world? How much time have they spent in the other world? You know, how much are we going to learn about Scala, Kylam, in Missing Link? There's a ton of questions, but for me, it's the whole concept idea of unreality and how Verse 13 has obviously molded and inspired it. I want to know where that inspiration come from and what is the lore reason for that inspiration. That's what I want to know.
I'm with you there, too. There's so much to unfold, and like you said, it's like Pandora's box is being opened right now, and we're just, like, thrusted into where almost anything is possible, but also I'm so intrigued to see which way the pointer goes. It's like, which road are we going to go down right now? And Kingdom Hearts 4 obviously has the most opportunities to show us what Tetsuya Nomura is going to really, like, is going to say, all right, you ready for this? Well, strap in. This is the ride that you're getting on right now. So, because, you know, you have to imagine that there's going to be much more of this to come. Or, you know, we want to hope that there's going to be much more of this to come. So where are we going to lead to new stories, to lead to new possibilities, more opportunities? It's exciting. It's exciting, and gosh, we've waited so long for, you know, the gaps between the previous games, but for some reason, this one, I feel like everyone's more like just shaking their chair because it's so visually and it happens so quickly and also so, like, fiercely. Like, we saw, like, such drastic changes thrown right in our faces. It's such a, I feel like people are hungry right now. They're like the fish are waiting at the, you know, the edge of the water, and they're ready to just start eating. So I'm one of those fish.
That's why I feel that compared to Kingdom Hearts 3, because that was a really good point you brought up, compared to Kingdom Hearts 3, Kingdom Hearts 4 is probably going to come a lot sooner than people think, right? Because the first Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer, it was like, oh yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 got confirmed, new graphical style, but it was very minimal. Like,
Yeah.
we saw Sora pick up Ericus's Keyblade at Destiny Islands, and then we saw him in Twilight Town fighting, the Devil's Wave, which I never want to see again in my life. But for Kingdom Hearts 4, that the identity of 4 is very blatant. It's very in your face. There's a lot shown off. It wasn't minimal at all.
No.
Like, there was a lot shown off in the first Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer. So I feel like it's, the identity for the game, what they want to do, is way more along in development than they lead on, and I feel like we're going to get it a lot sooner than expected.
I hope so. I really do. And the fact that they're throwing, these multiple games, they're doing some more. They're doing Dark Road and they're doing Missing Link. It's like there's, I feel like, and we've all been saying this kind of on Twitter collectively. People who are fans of this, like, we are fucking eating out here with all this content like right now. And granted, maybe it's a product of companies really being able to, like, during this pandemic, being able to sit down and strategize and say, okay, like, let's figure out what we're doing here. How do we move forward and move forward strong? I mean, Square as a company is really kind of on all different, between the Final Fantasy Colossus that they have and the Kingdom Hearts Colossus and every other product that they have. Granted, there's company structural changes that are happening, which remain to be TBD to see what the product of that is. But I'm a fan of bringing these titles back as they are. I'm excited for Final Fantasy 16. Like, I couldn't be more excited for a game like that, where I know some people are skeptical of what the game is going to be, but for me, I'm loving that. The Crisis Core stuff, I mean, all the Kingdom Hearts stuff to come. I think if you're going to look at companies and gaming specifically as like a good analogy would be like Hollywood. They constantly recycle these titles. Right, I always make the joke of, like, we're going to have Shrek 10 before we see another new original idea that's, born out of nothing. But now I think these are things that are great for a brand new generation to experience a game and a series and hopefully go back and revisit these catalogs. Movies rarely kind of have that, or TV series where something is sparking you to go back and rewatch the other things. I mean, I guess you can make the arguments for, like, Marvel and stuff like that, but but still, it's kind of a similar caliber where a Crisis Core remaster, that's some exciting shit for people to be able to experience a game that no one is going to be able, unless you're emulating stuff, but no one's going and buying a PSP right now.
Yeah, that game was trapped on PSP for the longest, and now finally it's unleashed.
So I'm really excited about that in the future of gaming, and Kingdom Hearts obviously has a big place in my heart, like that, as many other people do too. I'm very, very, very excited about the future of gaming. Going back here before we get into our questions from our audience and listeners, and thank you everybody who keeps writing in. info@pointsofexperience podcast is where you can send those questions. What is something you would have told yourself, or you wish you could have told yourself as a young content creator or streamer? That one piece of advice you wish you could have given yourself that you feel like would have had a really big impact on you. Not necessarily the thing you would have changed, or not the piece of advice you'd give to an aspiring streamer. What's the thing you would have told yourself, back when you were starting or working your way up to who you are today?
Okay, I got one, and it was always it was a me problem, right? Mm-hmm. It was always like a me problem when it comes to, like, the whole spiel of content creation. Is that growing up, like I said before in this podcast, growing up, I was bullied in middle school and high school. So, like, when it comes to, like, people that aren't within my circle of friends, I was very, like, I'm very particular on where I place my trust. And a lot of my friends would tell you, a lot of people within my inner circle is like, oh, you fuck with me once, that's all it takes. Like, I will excommunicate you, period. Right? So, like, I always have that very particular amount of trust when it comes to people I don't know, right? So, an advice I would tell myself to a younger self is to be a little bit more trusting when it comes to certain emails, right? Because there's a lot of emails that I've gotten before when it comes to, like, companies and stuff that want to reach out and like work with me or provide me with stuff like that. And I'm always like, because, like, the thing is, like, content creation is my full-time job, and I'm very comfortable, like, financially with it and stuff. But at the same time, I will never get used to this life where people are like, hey, I love your videos. I'm like, me? Really?
Yeah.
Awesome, yo. Thank you, man. Right. So whenever I get these emails of like brands or companies that want to work with me and provide me with stuff, I'm always like,
What do they
do you
really
know?
want?
Like, nah, you're probably trying to get my information for something, right? So there's a lot of missed
Are you the
opportunities.
IRS?
Right, yeah. So there's a lot of missed opportunities I've had, like growing up doing content creation, that I didn't take because of my trust issues with that.
Sure.
So that's why I would go back to myself. I'm like, yo, like, hey, listen, like do a little bit of research. Reverse search them on LinkedIn or whatever, but be a little bit more trusting on brands like trying to reach out to you. Not all of them are out to get you. And I'm like, okay, so that's the one advice I would give my younger self. You know,
I think that's a great piece of advice, and I think a lot of people, especially, and obviously for the better, if you're trying to be kind of authentic, and some people are very selective about the brand opportunities that they have. Some people are like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to sell out, even though I think that's a very terrible way of phrasing things.
It's super reductive. It's extremely reductive.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think anybody should even entertain that phrase of working with other opportunities to make what you do. I mean,
I have to eat.
Yeah. The freedoms you're afforded when you're able to make money doing what you're doing, it far outweighs this idea of like selling out if you're trying. You know what I mean? Obviously, have your integrity and be skeptical to a degree, like you're saying. Like, you know, obviously look into making sure these people are legit. Don't just answer every single email and say yes to every little thing that comes your way. Do a little bit of your homework, or bring someone on your team that can do a little bit of that homework. I mean, that's why I have agents and managers. I don't say yes to every single audition and every opportunity I get, because who knows where they're putting some of these titles. If any just random person was putting it out there, you know, I want to make sure that I'm being associated with things that I agree with and I believe in and I support. Yada, yada, yada. But you know, definitely, I think it's great to, and you should be proud of yourself that you were able to cultivate such an audience and reach to have people want to work with you. I think that's something to be really proud of, and it's all. I mean, honestly, bravo to you and everything you've done and built. It's not an easy road. It's oftentimes
not easy, man.
It's a dark road. Yeah.
Nice.
So let's hear. All right, before we move into the questions here, I want to hear the number one story, the most trial and tribulation story you have, I think, of your content creation or pursuit in this career. What's the one that sticks out to you that maybe you haven't talked about a lot?
I talk about this every now and again. Whenever like the question arises or whatever, but man, like I don't even have to think twice about like the worst thing I've ever gone through when it comes to content creation. That really tested like the tested the channel and whatnot. And you know, a lot of people have like their own assumptions of what it might be, but like I'm telling you, it's not what you probably think. The main thing was that back when Super Smash Bros. Wii U and 3DS was being promoted and didn't come out yet, there was a leak that happened. And it turned out to be a very legitimate leak, right? Even though people were like, it's not a real leak. It was the leak that happened that leaked Shulk and Bowser Jr., right? So I made a couple of videos on that, like a dumb kid, showing off the footage and pictures of the leak. And I'm like, hey guys, check it out. You know, like leak Bowser Jr. Shulk is coming to like Super Smash Bros., right? Literally the day afterwards, I got smacked with not one, but 2 copyright strikes directly from Nintendo, right? Yeah. And you guys don't understand how bad this was, right? I reached out to Nintendo, hey, listen, I'll take care of the videos, I'll take it off, please just remove the strikes. And I was telling them, like, Canon's like, and they're like, oh, we appreciate your cooperation, but we can't take off the strike. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can, but they didn't. Since they did that, I went out monetization for 6 months. Right? And that was really tough. And at the time, my family and Twitch came in clutch, right, with that. And it really, like, it was during a point in time where it was one of those times where like it happened at the worst time imaginable, because at that point in time I went to PAX East that year. I'm pretty sure this was 2014. Oh, it was a PAX. Anyways, I went to this PAX, and then the management, my YouTube manager, who I was partnered with, like my MCN at the time, which was RPM Network. It was RPM Network, which was a smaller subsidiary of Polaris, which Polaris was a subsidiary of Maker Studios, right?
Okay.
And I signed with them way back when they were known as something else. I forgot it was. It was like really early. Around that time, I was reaching out to them. Was like, hey, listen, is anything you can do as an MCM to really like help out my channel? Like, I feel like I got what it takes, whatnot. Like, you know, any type of backing from you guys and stuff. And I got a response from a lady named Veronica, and she's like, oh, yeah, definitely. We would like to invite you to I think it was like our Makers Premiere program, which they offered me a lot of tools and a lot of more like backing in terms of like help bringing my content. And like it really did help out my content at the time, getting more recognized, more in line with the algorithm and stuff like that. And they also gave me a lot of like tips and tricks. Anyways, my content was really, you know, going up and up. And the strike happened. The strike happened before I went to PAX East. As I was making my way to PAX East, I get a phone call from Veronica, and I'm like, who's this? Oh, it's Veronica. I'm like, oh, hey, because we always would communicate through email. So she's like, hey, listen, at PAX East, there's going to be the Polaris booth, and we have some contacts there named Musashi and Farid, right? And those two are homies. Like, they really helped out my channel at that point in time. So then, like, oh, go to the Polaris booth, look for them, and they'll take it from there. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but okay. I go and find the Polaris booth, and I meet up with Musashi. And it's like, oh, my name's Moosh. I'll be handling your channel from now on. I'm like, oh, wait, so Veronica's not going to help me out? It's like, no, she handles, like, the little channels that are trying to get up in there, but now you're past that threshold, so I'm going to be helping you out. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I was kind of sad, but I mean, like, it was fine. So then I meet Farid, and, like, super cool guy, currently works for Rooster Teeth right now. And he's like, oh, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Tell me about yourself, tell me about your channel. And then, like, we kind of, like, I tell him myself, and then we just shoot the shit afterwards. That night of PAX, he calls me up, and, like, calls me up as I'm about to sleep, like, midnight, right? And then he's like, hey, HMK, are you awake? And I'm like, I am now. And I'm like, so what's up? What do you need? He's like, oh, first thing in the morning, find me at the Players booth. First thing in the morning. I'm like, okay, yeah. All right, cool. Awesome. I hang up, go to sleep. I wake up. I go to the Polaris booth, and then he's there waiting for me. He's like, all right, walk and talk. And he was telling me, so, you know, a lot of people get twisted that Polaris, if you don't know, Polaris back in the day was like a really big deal, right? You know, Angry Joe, Eagle Raptor, Jontron, Game Grumps, like Jacksepticeye, they were all part of the Polaris group network, whatever. He's like, oh, as you know, Polaris is like this premier group of gamers that come together under Maker Studios and stuff like that, and we help build up these channels and brands in order to be something great. We see them as the next big thing and whatnot, and it's not really just a numbers game. It goes more in line with personality, and if they have this like really forthright personality that is very, you know, very blatant, very powerful, very passionate and stuff like that, then we sign him on to Polaris. And then I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then me, like an idiot, wasn't putting two and two together at the time, right? And I'm like, oh, so where are you going with this? And then he looks to me and he's like, we see you as someone with that personality. We want you to join Polaris, right? And I'm like, what? And I was literally like, my jaw dropped. Like, you want me to be part of Polaris, right? It's like, yeah. It's like, we want you to be part of Polaris. And I'm like, yo. And I'm like, yo, and there's like the smoothest shit he did. Like, it was so smooth. I'm like, yo, man, I don't know what to say. And then he puts his hand out and he's like, say yes. And I'm like, yeah, right? So then I shake hands, and then we negotiate the contract, and the contract was just like, was nice, right? And that was a contract, like, I can't really say specifics about, like, the contract was really nice. But then I tell him, I'm like, listen, for Farid, my channel literally just got struck twice I have 2 copyright strikes on me, and I will not see monetization until like 5 months later, right? And then he's like, okay, let me check it out, and goes to like flips on his phone, looks at everything, and he's like, do you still plan on like uploading and doing content creation? And like, you know, and I told him like, this was, you know, a really big heavy hit, like, to my morale and stuff. I was like, yeah, definitely, like, this is definitely a morale booster and stuff like that. He's like, it should be no problem. Just keep uploading like you had monetization. It'll be fine, right? So he really gave me that push, right?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, it was like the worst situation, like at the worst point in time ever. So for 6 months, I was making videos without any type of money coming in from YouTube, you know, relying on a Twitch income. And throughout that point in time, Paul, I was making content without making money as part of Polaris, my numbers all shot up. It just shot up. So by the time I got my monetization back, I was good.
Yeah.
Like, it was at that point in time when I got my monetization back from my channel stripes and I was part of Polaris, where a month after that, I was able to quit my job. I was able to do it full time. And then, so, like, something came out great from that situation, but that's easily the worst thing that happened to me in terms of my content creation journey. Man, hands down.
What a story. I mean, the combination of being, like you said, one of the darkest times and thinking like your world is crashing upon you and having like one of the best opportunities in your life being presented to you, where you're maybe possibly fearing that this might all get taken away from you because of all this crap that's happening at the same time, and then having the patience and fortitude and the resilience to allow your head to get out above that water, because that's where most people go to perish. When they're presented with these challenges in life where it seems like all the odds are stacked against them, even when you have some great things presented to you, it's like you gotta stay resilient and you gotta be patient and you gotta keep doing the job that you're doing. You got some of the best advice you probably could have ever gotten, is just keep doing what you're doing. Keep trying to persevere and push through the noise. Gosh, I'm making so many puns here that are relevant to like Kingdom Hearts and The World Ends With You here. I'm not doing this on purpose, I promise. But it's really inspirational, and gosh, that must have been terrifying. I'm glad you stuck it through and you continued making the content, because you're doing something amazing right now, and you have a community of people that if you haven't checked out, gosh, I mean, there's no way you haven't, especially if you're a fan of mine. You've seen some of HMK's videos, and your videos that I've frequently watched, especially when I wasn't able to, play a lot of the Kingdom Hearts content before. Like I wasn't able to play, gosh, not Dark Road, but Union Cross before they had taken that stuff away. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to watch a lot of videos on this to try to get a great understanding. And you and a lot of other content creators were able to be there for me and provide not only the information in a way that I was like, I'm absorbing it, but I felt like I was on a ride. And I was part of this journey in a very excitable way, and we have to everyone. Let's take a moment right here to thank HMK for like giving us this amazing energy here on the podcast, because that is what we need. We needed a shot of electricity here, and we got it. And I feed upon that energy. I'm a little Tesla bulb or beam, so I'm thankful for that and for the videos that you create that you do not. Going back to the beginning here, you have that consistency, and every time you put something out there, I know it's going to be of the same quality and caliber and have the same kind of work ethic in there. And that's what I think separates you from somebody who, while you might be looking at the algorithm and you might be giving people what they want to a certain degree, there's so much of you and what you care about and what you do. And that's, I think, what makes it enjoyable. Some people only go down the road of looking at the dollar signs or looking at the numbers. And that's where things start to get a little muddy. That's where you're like, what's going on here? Maybe bad day, bad week, bad month. Every time I see one of your videos, I see the passion and I see the personality shine through there. And I think a lot of people, that's why they keep showing up to the streams, keep subscribing, keep showing up to the videos. It's great. We're very lucky to have you here.
Thank you. I'm super glad to be here, and thank you so much for having me here, man. It's been really fun.
Awesome. I'm glad. We've got 2 quick questions here before we go. One's a video question, so why don't we start with that one? Keith, if you can bring that up. This is from one of your fans. They wrote into us and sent us this video, so let's go ahead and give this a watch here.
All right.
Hey, HMK. It's Sean Walker from your Twitch chat. You know, the guy with constantly wrong opinions. My own. So I actually have a question for you, an honest question. What is an opinion that you've heard that is objectively so wrong that you were so bewildered from hearing it?
Okay. Oh, that's a good one.
The greatest intro to a question I've ever heard in my life. Thank you.
Shadow Wave always shows up in my chat and stuff like that, and then like we kind of tease him because he has a lot of like takes, and I'm like, but no, like Shadow, that's not how it works. Like like he would have this one take where it's like, like I forgot what the move was called in Pokemon. That it's Golisopod, but I say Galiciopod. It's the move that so he has the Pokemon itself has the ability like first strike, like a first strike ability, like it always go first.
Yep.
Right. And then it has a move, and I keep forgetting the name of the move is where you attack and then you automatically bounce back into your party. And he thinks that's a bad move. I'm like, no, that's like one of the best moves ever because he has like really high attack. He's always gonna go first. Oh, first impression. That's the name of the move. First impression. Where like he's gonna attack and he bounces back. And I'm like, Gallisto Pod is really squishy. So like that's a really cool move. And he's like, no, it's a bad move because he goes back to your party. I'm like, but there's more to that. Anyways.
Great question though. It's a really good question that you've asked here.
An opinion that I always looked at as like that baffles me. I'm like, how?
Objectively,
Objectively, it would have to be. It's weird because like it has to be an opinion. It can't be like factually wrong information. It has to be structured as opinion. I'm just like,
I guess, there must be some subjectiveness to this because if it was objectively, then it would just be somebody who's kind of talking out of their butt,
Right,
like it's
exactly.
like someone spewing nonsense. So I guess we do have to structure that a little bit. And I guess this goes down to like, and let me kind of rephrase it here. Like, what is the most ridiculous like conspiracy maybe that people like talk about that's like, really? Like, you really think that's gonna happen? Maybe that's the better direction to spin that question. Like, what's such a...
okay, all right. So, like, so this is obviously been proven wrong already. So, like, it's all right. So I got one easy. Like, it has to do with Sora and Smash, right? So, like, it's not really an opinion. I guess it was like more of an observation that's like completely wrong. Where people were like, "Oh, if Sora got into Smash, then Disney would buy Nintendo," right? And I'm like, every time I hear that. Just say you don't want Sora in Smash. It's fine if you don't want Sora in Smash. But then they always make these weird conspiracies and these weird mental gymnastics of like how he can't make it into Smash. And if he does, it's going to spell doom for Nintendo as a company. And I feel that's like the one that always baffles me. Because like this is how I know you don't know about business or how, buyouts work. All right. First of all, Disney as an American conglomerate can't buy a Japanese gargantuan of Nintendo. It's not that they don't have enough money. It's just that legally they can't. Yeah. Right. Like the world governments will get in the way of that buyout. It's like, no, you can't do that because then you're gonna take like people really don't understand it. Then you take like a funding that goes into the economy of one country away from that country to another country. Like. Why would you think that can happen? But then people are like, oh, but Sony buys these studios or Microsoft buys these studios. Like, yeah, they're buying studios, which aren't like their own like big entity things. Yeah. And that's why like in America, like, the government gets in the way if a monopoly tries to happen. Like, if you guys don't know, like, I think it was either AT&T or I'm pretty sure it was AT&T trying to buy Verizon, and then the government's like, no, right? Yeah. Like they won't let it happen. So whenever people's like, oh yeah, if Sora gets in, Nintendo's just gonna buy Disney buy Nintendo. I'm like, okay, so that's the answer to your question.
Great, I love it. It's that's a wild take, I believe, from fans who think that Disney and Nintendo are conspiring here behind closed doors to create an empire. Not gonna happen. I agree. No. Let's get the second question here, Keith. Thank you so much again. What was their name? Who sent in that question? What was their name?
All I heard was Shadow. Couldn't quite understand the rest of it, but HMK.
Oh, Shadow Wave. Yeah, thanks you so much, Shadow Wave, for the question.
Thank you. I really appreciate you writing in and sending your video in. Who do we got here?
All right, so this is from ROCCAT. I think that's how you pronounce that.
Okay.
So I saw one of your YouTube shorts. This is specifically for HMK. And one of them is an edited clip where Sora opens his heart in the Birth by Sleep scene, and Riku mentioned that every world is connected to one big sky. It shows clips of Yozora. What makes you think that somehow Sora is connected to Yozora? Does that mean that Sora is part Yozora or vice versa? Also, I love both Paul and HMK's content.
Oh, hey, thank you. Oh, that's a good one. So, I love that scene so much, and I play around with that scene all the time when it comes to like that's the whole idea. Like I said earlier on this podcast, where like the challenge and the perspective of what could be and what can be inferred from like Kingdom Hearts, Zelda, all that good jazz. Now that scene is obviously like in the context of Sora and having his heart communicate with Ventus in order to save his Ventus's heart from like complete shutdown. or whatnot, but I felt like it could also be a very beautiful way to insinuate how, Sora indeed reached out to Yozora's heart. And we kind of get that idea at the end of Kingdom Hearts Remind, where Sora's like, oh, I'm all here, like, is anyone out there? Can anyone hear me? And then, Zora is the one to answer. Now, like, obviously, when we go to the name meanings of both Sora and Yozora, like Sora meaning sky, and then Yozora meaning night sky, and whatnot, and then, of course, it's in the insinuation of how the cutscenes are structured in Kingdom Hearts 3, where it's like, oh, Sora and Yozora. Like, I've been having some of these weird thoughts lately. Is any of these for real or not? I feel that there's a massive connection to Sora, between Sora and Yozora. I've had a bunch of theories, going in line with the idea of Yozora is the Sora of unreality, or that Yozora is a representation of Sora's character from unreality into fiction. It's like, oh, like if a Sora entity were to grow up in the upbringing that Yozora had over on the other side. And then, of course, the idea of Yozora being not only like, the comparison to Sora, but to be the contrast to Sora, in which, Yozora is like everything that Sora isn't, but still connected. Sora is sky. Yozora is night sky. Sora grew up in, the countryside of the beach, in a very rural area, in a warm beach, right, that we're always seeing daytime. Yozora more than likely grew up in the city, Shibuya, and is like, in the very metropolitan sense, where like it's always deemed within the night sky itself. Sora being very open, very liberating with his feelings. Yozora being very cold, aloof, and probably more than likely very walled off, right, of his feelings, very stern, whatnot. And then it also boils down to the idea that originally, and this was like a really cool find that I love incorporating into my theories, that when Yoko Shimomura, the composer of Kingdom Hearts, was interviewed about how she composed like various themes within that Kingdom Hearts 3 and Kingdom Hearts Remind. Apparently the original name for Nachtflügel, which is translated from German to Wings of the Night or Nightwing, the original name for that was Mirror of Night. Right? Which really makes you like think about the whole idea of unreality, reality. Sora and Yozora, they're looking at each other through a mirror of night. That is the mirror within the night. And then, of course, there's another theme leading into Kingdom Hearts 3 to Kingdom Hearts Remind that is known as Secrets of the Night, which is like the theme that plays in the background of the Yozora Secret movie. So it's that whole perspective, like mirror, secrets. I feel 100% there is a connection between the two. What that connection is obviously we still don't know, but of course that is one of the avenues I love exploring and stuff like that. I get every now and again people like, oh, you're talking about Yozora again. I'm like, yeah, like what? Like Yozora's cool. Like please, like I want to know more. I want to try and figure out more about this character. So that's what I feel that connection is. I feel that if there was any underlying connection before Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, possibly only in the sense of Yozora and Sora experiencing a type of growth like alongside each other in parallel of their own adventures, and now we are seeing them converge into Kingdom Hearts 4. Like Yozora has gone through this, Sora's gone through this, and these are their paths that they walked, one of the night, one of the day, one in reality, one in unreality, and I feel that's the connection being made between that of Sora and Yozora. And that's what I gotta say about that.
Wow, first of all, thank you for your question, but what a I'm trying not to curse here, but there's no other way to say this. A fucking fantastic answer. Gosh, you can, and
Thank
this
you.
is what I truly. It's so admirable, and I think this is a testament to anybody looking to do anything in any career. When you know what you're talking about, when you've done the homework, when you've studied the literature, you're able to speak about it so eloquently, and you do to such an amazing degree, specifically about the Kingdom Hearts stuff. It's like you know what you're talking about because you've been so invested in this series and these games. It's just so amazing to hear you and your passion speaking about it. It's infectious. It really is infectious. It puts a nice big mustachy smile on my face right now as I sit here. I have one final question here that I actually wanted to ask. It's a very stupid, simple question, and we kind of maybe said it. It might be the same answer, it might not, but you maybe just think of saying this now.
No problem.
We're in a world here and we've got maybe it's the Kingdom Hearts genie comes and pops up into your room right now, right beside your head.
Oh,
and
here we
says,
go.
You get one wish, and the wish is revolving around you being able to ask Tetsuya Nomura one question, and he has to answer it. You get to sit down face to face, and you get to ask one question, and he has to answer it. What would that question be?
Just saying, this is a mean question, Paul, for the guy that does Kingdom Hearts theories. This is a mean question.
That is ooh. Tetsuya Nomura, okay. If I had him to myself, all right, what would I ask?
The doors are
Just
closed.
one.
No one else will hear it. What would the one thing be that you're like, I want to know. Why did you make that? Why'd you name it that? What is this? Was that actually this?
I have so many questions. It's like,
But if you only got one,
God, but like that, what do I use it on? Do I use it on something for Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind? Do I use some from the past? Do I? Oh boy. That's
all right. So here's the better question. All right, and maybe it's not the number one thing you'd ask if you don't have one, but like, let's say the question has to be so good that if he likes the question, he'd let you ask another one. So maybe what's the one that would lead? What's the question that you'd be like, okay, that he appreciates me asking this question. I'm gonna be able to ask more because of that one.
Okay.
Does that help? Does it help manipulate the question more?
It helps a little. Yeah, it helps a lot actually. So then I'll end it off with this. All right, I will ask him, Tetsuya Nomura-san. Obviously, in development of Birth by Sleep coinciding that of 358 Days over 2, there is an obvious, thanks to the trailers and thanks to the promotional art, there's going to be an obvious comparative contrastive relationship insinuation between that Terra and Ventus that is mirrored between that of Xemnas and Roxas. But as the games came out, obviously that didn't follow through. And as we know that Terra's body eventually did go on to become Xemnas, so it makes sense of how like Xemnas would try to like, exude what Terra is like thinking or possibly like doing in terms of like how he treats Roxas, of how Terra treated Ventus 10 years prior. There's obviously something going on there from what we saw with the trailers and like the things he left behind, especially in the Ultimania. What changed? What made you want to drop all that? Because I felt that would have been a really interesting and beautiful, exposition for all of those characters to show people's like, damn, it went from this to that. So that's the question, like, what happened? Because, like, if you guys look back at the trailers and pictures, like, there's one famous scene that was in a Birth by Sleep trailer that never made it to the final game that's literally a one-to-one recreation of the scene that happens in 358 Days, or in Kingdom Hearts 2 specifically. And that's the scene where Xemnas is like, oh, I've been to see him. He looks a lot like you, right? Where Xemnas gets up and, like, Roxas meets with him. Xemnas gets up, is like, oh, you've been with us for 6 days now. The time has come. And he walks over to him, and he puts his hands on his shoulder, and then, like, says something and walks off, right? And Roxas looks at him, right? That scene was actually recreated in one of the beta Birth by Sleep trailers, where Terra is talking to Ventus at the Great Maw of all places in Hollow Bastion, and then Terra's sitting up there, Terra gets down, and then he walks the same way, like Xemnas is walking to Ventus, shot for shot, puts his hand on Ventus' shoulder, just like how Xemnas did to Roxas, and Ventus looks at him the same way, and I'm like, there was something going on. Nomura, what was that thing and why did you stop? That's what I would ask him. Yeah, that's
so good. I love it. Great answer. And listen, I had to ask at least one hard hitting question here to make this, something where you're getting an exclusive inside look and scoop. I felt that was fair. I felt that I had the leniency, Keith, here to ask that one hard hitting question, but you killed it. I think what an amazing question to get answered here. Everybody, HMKilla, HMK, thank you so much for coming on here and bestowing us with your insatiable attitude and energy. I needed this in my day today. I think everybody listening here is going to be like, if they were slouched in their chair, everybody's going to be like, I just had a great time right now. So for gosh sakes, is there anything you want to promote, a certain videos or something you're working on? Obviously follow you on all the social media platforms, but what should people know right now that they don't already probably?
Well, hi, I'm HMK. If you like, excitable, passionate content when it comes to Zelda, Kingdom Hearts, Smash, and possibly more, you can follow me on all things, everything you can follow me on, possibly. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, HMKilla, it's all one thing. So just find me there, subscribe, have a good time. I'm sure you're going to have it. If you love thinking about the unknown, you're going to love this. And when it comes to like upcoming content, I've got a couple of Kingdom Hearts 4 videos. I've got like this big like lineup of theories when it comes to the whole concept of what Quadram could mean when it comes to the mechanics we've seen in Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer, and you know what we've known from story going from Melody and Memory, Union Cross, Kingdom Hearts 3, and then maybe even Dark Road, and possibly that of Missing Link. I've got like this big exposition on like Quadram. It's less of a theory, more of a documentary series that I'm planning to work on. Now I am working on it. I'm planning to put out. So I hope you guys look forward to that, and that's like the big thing that I'm looking forward to, putting on my channel.
I know I am. I can't wait to watch myself. So this is going to be really exciting. Again, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody,
thank you so
HMK.
much for having me. Thank you so much.
Oh, honestly, my pleasure, and you're welcome back anytime. Seriously.
Oh, you know where to find me.
Thank you so much, buddy. What's up, everybody? This is Paul, and I have to say a tremendous thank you to HMKilla, and the Fifth Dimension. I had to repay him for that amazing intro that he did for us, and for seriously bringing the noise, as I so cornily said. Cornily? Is that a word? I'm coining that. I'm coining that word. So when you coin a word, that's when you coin it a corny saying. Got it. HMK, what a great human being, and an even better content creator. Seriously, I think his knowledge and wisdom and intellect regarding Kingdom Hearts as well as Zelda, we didn't even get to talk about that, and his Smash Brothers commitment to these series and these franchise games is so commendable, and I'm so appreciative that he's doing that. Seriously, if you are unfamiliar with the Kingdom Hearts world or like what's going on, because it can be a bit complex if you haven't gotten to play all the games, not that you can't enjoy them if you decide to pick one up, but if you're looking for more information, please go to his YouTube channel, subscribe obviously, and check out what he's got going on there. It's phenomenal. So many of his theories, and again, like what he was talking about, the premise of his channel is exploring these unknowns, and that's what's so exciting about games and movies and series and books, is exploring that unknown, sitting around and talking with people about your speculations and your theories about these games and what's happening and why it happened. That's like just human nature, wanting to theorize and have fun with what we've been given, the mysteries that are a part of these beautifully written stories, and that's why some of these games are so good, and I enjoy them as much as I do. Gosh, I'm just really thankful that he decided to come on here. So, subscribe, follow, like, all those things. Those mean a lot to content creators, and check out his Twitch streams, because I think he's playing Final Fantasy VII, in addition to, like he was saying, the Persona games maybe, so check them out. And if you can also do us a huge favor, please subscribe to us on all those podcast platforms, because it helps us as well. And leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and you can rate us on Spotify. That's it. Until next time, I hope to see you all again with the same magnetic energy that we had today. And if not, we're traveling in different speed zones. We'll be in all different lanes. And I'm a chameleon. I'll adapt. I'll whatever someone's giving me, I'll match that. You don't have to worry about that, because that's my commitment to you. That is my commitment to the Points of Experience podcast listeners. All right, everybody, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your car drive, workout, whatever you're doing, and we'll see you next time.